"Status report," she barked, her voice laced with the same steely resolve that had carried her through the battle. "We're banged up, but still in one piece," Marcus growled, wiping a trickle of vivid blue blood from a gash on his forehead. "No fatalities, but Jax took a nasty hit. Gonna need Ayla to take a look at him." Arra nodded, her expression grim. The battle had been a costly one, but they had prevailed their bonds of loyalty and trust forged anew in the crucible of combat. As the team regrouped and tended to their injuries, Arra couldn't help but feel a sense of grim determination settle over her. This had been their first taste of the chaos that consumed Agranus Septum, but it would not be their last. In the aftermath of their fierce battle with the Malaxian mercenaries, Arra and her team found themselves hunkered down in a remote outpost on the fringes of the Krakdia's Badlands. The prefabricated structures, once used as a forward operating base by the mercenaries, now served as their temporary refuge, a tenuous foothold in the heart of Agranus Septum's unforgiving wilderness. As Ayla tended to Jax's wounds, her deft hands working with the precision of a veteran field medic, Arra gathered the rest of the team around the holographic projector table. The display flickered to life, rendering a three-dimensional map of the surrounding region, its topography a jagged maze of canyons and mesas. "All right, people, we've got a toehold, but we're still in the dark about the exact whereabouts of our missing comrades," Arra began, her voice laced with determination. "It's time we start gathering some hard intel." Zara, the team's tech specialist, nodded, her fingers already dancing across her datapad. "I've been monitoring enemy communications since we hit the ground, but so far it's just been a lot of chatter about the firefight and reinforcements being mobilized." "Then we'll have to take a more direct approach," Arra said, her gaze sweeping over the assembled team. "Rafe, you and Kel will head out and make contact with any locals or resistance groups operating in the area. See if you can gather any information on Jack, Nara, and Tiev's last known whereabouts." The infiltration specialist and the sniper exchanged a grim nod, their expressions betraying no hint of the apprehension they undoubtedly felt at the prospect of venturing into the heart of enemy territory. "Marcus, you and I will coordinate surveillance and recon efforts from here," Arra continued. "We need to be monitoring enemy movements and communications around the clock. The moment we get a solid lead, we'll be ready to move." The grizzled veteran's gruff affirmation was punctuated by the muffled thump of an explosion in the distance, a reminder of the ever-present conflict that raged across Agranus Septum's scarred surface. For the next few cycles, the team operated with a quiet intensity, each member playing their role in the delicate dance of intelligence gathering. Zara's fingers flew across her control console, her brow furrowed in concentration as she sifted through intercepted transmissions and decrypted enemy communications. Rafe and Kel, meanwhile, ventured forth into the treacherous wilds, making contact with scattered pockets of resistance fighters and survivors who had managed to eke out a precarious existence amidst the unending carnage. Their interactions were tense affairs, fraught with the ever-present threat of betrayal or ambush. Trust was a rare commodity on Agranus Septum, and even the most innocuous of encounters could turn deadly in the blink of an eye. Yet through a combination of diplomacy, intimidation, and the occasional application of force, the duo managed to gather scraps of information, whispers of captives being held in a heavily fortified Malaxian stronghold, rumors of a brewing conflict between the mercenaries and the Kedron horde over control of the planet's richest mineral deposits. With each new piece of intelligence, the puzzle began to take shape, the team's understanding of the complex web of allegiances and enmities that governed the conflict on Agranus Septum growing ever more intricate. And through it all, the ever-present specter of their missing comrades loomed, driving them onward with an unwavering sense of purpose. For in this crucible of unending war, where trust was a fleeting commodity and the line between friend and foe blurred with each passing cycle, the bonds of loyalty and camaraderie that bound Arra's team together were their only constants, the unbreakable tethers that kept them anchored amidst the chaos. And it was those bonds that would guide them towards their ultimate goal, no matter the obstacles or perils that lay in their path. As the cycles passed and the team's intelligence-gathering efforts bore fruit, it became increasingly clear that navigating the treacherous landscape of Agranus Septum's political terrain would be just as perilous as braving its physical challenges. The various factions vying for control of the planet's resources were locked in a complex web of shifting allegiances and deep-seated enmities, each group motivated by a potent mix of greed, ideology, and the sheer will to survive. It was in this volatile climate that Arra found herself engaging in a delicate dance of diplomacy, reaching out to potential allies and brokers of information in the hopes of gaining a foothold in the ever-shifting sands of Agranus Septim's power struggles. One such meeting took place in the ruins of an abandoned mining colony, the crumbling structures bearing the scars of countless battles fought over the precious minerals that lay beneath the planet's surface. Arra's contact was Kirill, a grizzled veteran of the once formidable Free Miners Collective, now reduced to little more than a ragtag band of survivors eking out an existence in the fringes of the conflict zones. As Arra and Marcus made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the colony, their footsteps echoing off the cracked permacrete walls, they could feel the weight of the risks they were taking. Trust was a fragile commodity on Agranus Septim, and even the slightest misstep could spell disaster. Finally, they reached the rendezvous point, a cavernous chamber that had once served as a refinery, its towering machines now rusted and silent. Kirill was waiting for them, his weathered features etched with a lifetime of hardship and mistrust. "You're the ones looking for information on the Malaxian stronghold," he growled, his voice a raspy baritone that seemed to carry the weight of the world upon it. Arra nodded, her expression carefully neutral. "We are, and we're prepared to compensate you for any intelligence you can provide." Kirill's eyes narrowed, sizing up the two Orion soldiers with a mixture of wariness and begrudging respect. "Information ain't cheap on this rock, but I reckon you already know that." The negotiations that followed were a delicate dance, each party probing for weaknesses and hidden motivations, even as they ostensibly sought common ground. Arra held her own, her training in diplomacy and negotiation proving invaluable as she navigated the treacherous currents of Agranus Septim's political landscape. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of posturing and veiled threats, a tentative agreement was reached. Kirill would provide them with the coordinates of the Malaxian stronghold, as well as any intelligence he could gather on the movements and activities of the mercenary forces. In exchange, Arra and her team would assist in disrupting a Kydron horde supply line that had been choking off the Free Miners' already tenuous lifeline. It was a fragile alliance, one born of necessity and desperation rather than any true sense of trust or camaraderie. But in the crucible of Agranus Septim's unending conflict, such tenuous bonds were often the only thing keeping the fragmented resistance forces from being swept away entirely. As Arra and Marcus made their way back to the team's temporary base, the coordinates of their ultimate objective burning like a beacon in their minds, they couldn't help but feel a sense of grim determination settle over them. They had taken the first steps towards unraveling the tangled knot of allegiances and hostilities that governed Agranus Septim, but they knew that the road ahead would only grow more treacherous. The tenuous alliance with Kirill, the grizzled veteran of the Free Miners Collective, had been a lifeline for Arra and her team. The intelligence he provided had been instrumental in their efforts to locate the Malaxian stronghold where their captured comrades were being held. It was a fragile trust, born of necessity in the harsh realities of Agranus Septim's unending conflict, but it had been a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. That hope was shattered in an instant. The joint operation had been meticulously planned, every detail accounted for and every contingency prepared for. Arra's team, in coordination with a hand-picked group of Free Miners, was to strike at a key Malaxian supply depot, disrupting the flow of weapons and resources to the mercenary forces. But as the team moved into position, their cloaked transport gliding silently through the canyons of the Kraktis Badlands, the trap was sprung. The first salvo of energy blasts slammed into the transport shields, the force of the impact throwing Arra and her comrades against their restraints. Warning klaxons blared, the cockpit awash in the crimson glow of emergency lighting. "It's an ambush," Zora shouted, her fingers flying across the control console as she desperately tried to evade the incoming fire. Multiple contacts closing fast. Through the viewport, Arra caught a glimpse of their attackers, a swarm of heavily armed Malaxian strike craft, their angular silhouettes cutting through the swirling mists like predatory beasts. In there, amidst the chaos, was a sight that made Arra's blood run cold. A free miner transport, its weathered hull adorned with the unmistakable markings of Chiral's faction, was among the attackers, its weapons unleashing a relentless barrage upon the beleaguered team. "Chiral, you treacherous bastard," Marcus snarled, his fists clenched in rage. "He sold us out." I hope you enjoyed the story so far. It's just part of a much longer and grander story. Please be sure to subscribe and drop a like too. The next part of the story will be in the top left once it's out.